We're on page 359.
So is the month of Av status change after Tu B'Av or before? As,
Probably already changed tonight. Or really last night, if Tisha B'Av had fallen out on the 9th of Av. But because it fell on the 10th, really the 10th is already its own new.
right.
The 10th at night is its own.
So we
Meaning
don't have to
11th.
decrease joy or...
No, there's no more Inyan. Very good. There's no more Inyan in the morning. That's all over.
What happens on Tu B'Av?
Yeah.
Oh.
What happens at Tuba?
No talking.
Yeah,
Young
there's
men
no time.
choose
Yeah,
wives.
so why?
Yeah, we
Right?
set the tie up.
Replenish
on
the-
I mean, I know there's the six
The
great things
bonfire
that
should
happen.
The what? The
Right,
six?
the Jewish
Six great
state.
things that happen, but besides that,
I don't know what 6 great things happen.
in Ta'anit it states what happens on Tu B'Av.
Oh, okay. What was it, 6th grade?
The six great things.
Oh, 6 great things. That's on that. 6th grade. I don't know. I didn't go to your school.
Sixth grade, yeah.
This Tu B'Av, you're right. He's right. First off, Israel has kind of turned Tu B'Av into Valentine's Day.
Right.
And it's a big mistake, because the day of Kedusha became a day of non-Kedusha. Tu B'Av is the kind of holiday that we keep on the calendar, so that when we argue with fanatical rabbis, we show them, how do you explain this holiday? It's that kind of holiday. We keep it around for a reason. All the boys and girls went out, they danced around, they all got married, they wore white, they changed each other's clothes, all kinds of interesting things happened on this night. It's the kind of thing that just wouldn't happen today in Bnei Brak, like it just wouldn't work out that way. And so it just makes you question, like, so who's right, Chazal or Bnei Brak? It's just that kind of story. Practically, I don't think we've ever reinstituted this Tu B'Av mentality. It took a lot of holiness and a lot of Kedusha and purity, and I don't know that our world is at a place where we would know what to do with such concepts. So for now, it's a day that we don't say Tafel.
That's it.
Page 359. We were speaking about tzitzit, ladies wearing tzitzit, not wearing tzitzit. Maran's opinion that ladies not only cannot wear tzitzit, but do not make a blessing if they would. The Ramah's opinion is that if they do wear tzitzit, they're allowed to, and they're also allowed to make a blessing on it, as is accordance of Ashkenazi custom, to
Right.
be able to make a blessing on mitzvot. Would you choose to obligate yourself in?
I'll choose to obligate. So it's a chazakah, like you do it 3 times and then you obligate?
You asked me last month, I don't know about a chazakah. I don't know how that would work. You guys tell me. Nashim.
Do you know anyone who's doing that, or any groups?
Any tzadikot that are doing it? No, unfortunately.
There are women's
There are
minyanim.
ladies who do these things, but yeah, but not tzadikot.
So
not
Rashi's
tzadikot.
daughters wore tefillin? Did they wear
It doesn't
tefillin?
have a source anywhere that says
Probably
Rashi's
taught.
not his word to film. I mean, we don't, it's a Jewish legend, but
Oh, okay.
I've never seen a source for it. I once mentioned in a class, someone said, "Oh, it's in a book called the Seder Hadorot. It's a Jewish history book." I said, "Okay, show it to me." And he went to look it up and he couldn't find it. So I don't know. I'm not sure. It could be that it's there. It could be that it's not
A
there.
lot of things come into the
Michal-
vernacular of a culture, and they don't have a source anymore, but people think that they have a source.
Sure.
It's a funny thing.
Michal Bat Shaul, the daughter of King Shaul, she wore tefillin. Yeah, the Talmud records that. As
You
a
said
lady
that she
wore
had
tefillin.
like a neshama, like
Right,
a
so Ben Ish Chai explains that Kabbalah, she had a man's neshama, whatever that means. It's like above my pay grade. But this is,
but she couldn't have children.
and she was not able to have children. Correct.
Oh, that's the reason?
Nashim pturot min mitzvah tzitzit. In the middle of the page. Women are exempt from mitzvah of tzitzit. Mipnei shehi mitzvah taseh shehazman germa, because it is a time-bound mitzvah which they're exempt from. Sharei halayla ino zman tzitzit, because nighttime is not a time of tzitzit. V'chol mitzvah taseh shehazman germa nashim pturot, and all time-bound commandments, ladies are exempt from them. ואפילו יש לה בגד שיש בה 4 כנפות, and even if she has an article of clothing that has 4 corners, רשאית ללובשו מבלי להטיל בו ציצית, she's allowed to wear it without putting tzitzit on it.
So like if a woman wears a poncho, it doesn't need tzitzit. If a man wears a poncho,
Well, there is
Yeah, why wouldn't that? Because it's a chova.
a Pri Megadim who suggests that perhaps if a man wears a woman's poncho, because the article itself is no longer obligated in tzitzit, he might be allowed to wear it also. He's not dealing with the prohibition of wearing women's clothing. He's just dealing with, if a man were to wear women's clothing that had 4 corners, maybe he's not obligated to put tzitzit on it.
So there are certain garments that don't come into the classification of beged ish, beged isha, like a poncho.
That's a later discussion, and yes, the answer is true. What if a woman's walking home with her husband on Friday night and she's cold?
Yeah.
Is the husband allowed to give her his jacket?
Yeah.
The answer is yes, yes. But even though this is true, and the poskim all agree that these things are true, meaning so long as okay, there's a long discussion, and if you want to have a discussion about beged ish, beged isha, it's an important conversation. But I know, for example, that Hanav Peretz, he won't even put on his wife's slippers if he has to go outside or something. Even if he can't find his, and there's no prohibition there of wearing their slippers, but he just won't do it. He don't want to get anywhere near a biblical prohibition, and it's not a halakha. That's not a halakha, but
It's a fence.
being careful. It's a fence that he made for himself. He doesn't teach it that way, but I know from personal experience, I know that's what he does. ולמנהג הספרדים ועדות המזרח, and according to the Sfaradim, הולכים בעקבות הוראות מרן השולחן ערוך ופעלו the teachings of מרן. אסור לאישה לברך על הציצית. A woman is not allowed to make a blessing on ציצית. וראוי שלא ילבשו הנשים טלית כלל. And it is proper that ladies should not wear talit at all. ואף למנהג האשכנזים, and even according to the custom of the Ashkenazim, הנוהגים שהנשים מברכות על מצוות עשה שהזמן גרמה. That ladies can obligate themselves and make a blessing on a mitzvah. לעניין מצוות ציצית, ראוי שלא ילבשו הנשים טלית כלל. Regarding talit, this is an exception to their rule, and even Ashkenazi ladies should not wear talitot. Now, there's a little bet over here. We're going to read the source of why halachically a woman should or should not wear a talit. I'm going to do that with you tonight. But the next line is not a halachic stance, it's a hashkafic stance. And you can do with this whatever you wish. ובפרט בזמן הזה, especially nowadays. Sheha, who can read that word?
Reforming.
That the reform movement, Okrei Hadat, who are uprooting the Jewish religion, Manhigim ken etzel hanashim, they have their ladies wearing talitot, they bosh tzitzit, they wear tzitzit, shebevadai tzichot hanashim heiraot dvar Hashem limanah mizeh, that the ladies who fear Hashem should do whatever they can to make sure they're not ever looking like reform ladies. He mentioned something similar, do you remember where? By wearing a kippah. Remember he said that even if you can prove to me halachically you don't need to wear a kippah, and nowadays when people who don't wear a kippot are considered not religious, it's our obligation to wear a kippot just to remove ourselves from that category. It's not a halachic rule. That's his opinion on hashkafa. Okay, this part is not my part to deal with. I want to go back to halachot.
So in the translation it says nonsense. Tumtum and androgynous
Yes.
are obligated to wear tzitzit out of doubt, but do not recite the bracha.
They wear tzitzit because they might be a man, and they don't recite a bracha because they might be a woman.
Interesting.
That's the understanding of that halakha.
So what's tumtum?
We discussed this last week, which is that tumtum is a person whose organs are covered up. We don't know what it is.
Retracted into the...
Androgynous is a person who has
Androgynous.
both male and female body parts. And
Yeah.
therefore, they can be both.
There are some people where the organs don't descend
Okay.
out to the exterior of the body, so you can't tell.
That's interesting.
I think it's more common with men than
they
with
would deal with it.
Or would,
Sure,
would
sure.
be a man.
And this, I mentioned last week, is the root of much discussion around some issues that are coming up today. Yes.
But because of modern day medicine, if there were ways to find out, I don't know, are there ways to find out?
Well, by hormones and blood tests.
Well, this is a
So-
debate
so
among
then-
scientists themselves
So
in
then
such a
what
situation.
poskim say,
Which gender should a person choose? And this is a big discussion.
but if they find out a definite gender, then would the halacha apply?
Very good.
Yeah.
You'd have to find out first before you find out a definite gender. According to halakha, what is a gender? Meaning, what is the definition of what defines
Yeah.
a person as their gender?
Right.
Is it hormones? Does halakha deal with something as scientific as hormones?
Chromosome.
Is it a physical body part? Is that something that halakha
Is
deals
it a
with?
mentality?
Is it a right? Of course. Also, all kinds of things here. You'd have to first. How do Chazal define gender? And then you'd have to apply that to what we know. Ha'aperes once brought this thing to question. What if you had meat and milk fall into each other, whatever happened, and you would take it to a laboratory, and actually it would be the kind of situation where halakha would say you can't eat it because maybe there's too much meat or too much milk or too much not kosher, but they actually, then they have, like in crime labs, they could do such things, they could separate the forensic, they could separate the different molecules inside and actually discover how much meat, how much milk, how much, is that enough of a proof in order to determine something's kosher status? And most rabbis that I've seen are afraid of these kind of things. They're not sure where they would lead. Absolutely. So it's a matter of knowing. If they can prove to you, halachically, that scientifically, that this is more meat than it is something else, you can rely on them.
So in this case,
But then there's the issue of naked sense perception versus tools that can see what the eye can't see. I mean, maybe that's a slightly different issue because
You're right.
like
For example, kashrut,
you
the
have
bugs
thrips.
that you can't see with your own eyes
Right.
don't count as bugs according to halakha, even if you can see them under the microscope.
Is that led to the nuclear vegetables of Israel?
Very much so. This whole discussion, it's a good discussion. I don't have a good answer for it.
They spray. There's so much spray. There's not a
so according
chance
to
that there will
parrots,
be
it seems he goes by
invisible bug.
knowing. So
And they put them in special packages.
So according to parrots, as
Rain vegetables.
According to parrots, I don't know that you could apply this to gender, but yes, technology, he's not afraid of technology in
so
halakha.
as
Meaning,
technology advances, and you would know more.
so would understanding
Okay.
of
It's
halakha.
nothing
It's not
like
just
it.
organic.
Huh?
It's not organic.
Whereas
Probably not.
Cowhide.
They have that
put out a
too?
book. And my wife says, don't take it to California.
What happened?
Don't
What
take
happened?
the book to Kehillat.
They have the book,
For what?
what other vegetable you can eat, what other vegetable you're not supposed to eat, how to clean, all those things. Book.
I know this book is called Shulchan Aruch, and Maran barely spends time on this topic. Because you use your eyes, you look for bugs. You really look, not what people say they look. You could look. You just have to take a package of lettuce from the store and look at the bottom and you'll see a few flies already over there. It's not something so complicated. The obsession with bugs goes along in the same category of rabbis obsessed with women's underwear. And it's like a new thing, it's a new Torah. Everyone's talking about bugs and microscopes and laboratories and light boxes and all kinds of... Well, show them, right? The person has to do everything and someone asked the so which vegetables can you not eat? So you can eat all the vegetables. What about the bugs? You didn't ask me if you eat bugs, so I eat vegetables. With every vegetable, every fruit, you have to check with your eyes. What else do you have except your eyes? Yeah.
So what if someone has near perfect eyesight, but somebody else with perfect eyesight would see a certain bug?
It's a good question. This goes to the standard category of, do you go based on a subjective person, or when you say a measurement, this is Ev brought this up a while back, we're talking about 2-finger measurements. Who's 2 fingers, you know? Average. It has to be what and how you determine this. I don't know. How does this person who has perfect vision and the one who doesn't have good vision, how do they determine what is normal vision? But whatever normal eyes would pick up, you probably have to show it to somebody else.
Because this isn't a measurement that can be standardized.
Right. Good questions. Let's look in the footnote down below. On the left-hand side. Ayen barishonim of Bet Yosef. Look in the Rishonim in the Bet Yosef. Shetalu din zeh b'machloket Rabbeinu Tam v'Harambam. They say this whole halakha here is a big argument between Rabbeinu Tam and the Rambam. Remember this halakha that we're discussing now, men and women, time-bound mitzvot, blessings, no blessings, this is the foundation of many, many other discussions. If you know this discussion, you will be able to understand many more halachot, love, mitzvot, sukkah, many other things. The Pesach Seder, Lini, all kinds of things that come up that are based on this argument here. Im hanashim mutarot levarech al mitzvat aseh she'azman grama. The question is a lady allowed to make a blessing on a mitzvat aseh, a time-bound mitzvah? V'atur kan katav, the Tur writes, she'yoter tov shlo yivachu. It's better not to make a blessing. V'tamhu hazeh marshal v'habach v'aprisha. So Tur is Ashkenazi. These 3 commentaries are also Ashkenazi. And they say they're not sure. Where does the Tur get that from? The Tur himself holds כדעת רבנו תם, like רבנו תם, דנשים רשאות לברך על מצוות עשה שהזמן גרמה. The ladies are allowed to make a blessing on time by mitzvot. וכתב הבח ליישב, and the Bach, the Bet Chadash, Rabbi Yoel Circus, I bring him down on my book on the chapter on Yashan. He writes, שבציצית, שאין מנהג דנשים ללבוש ולברך, that because tzitzit is special, there is no custom of Jewish women that wear tzitzit. So if she comes, אם באה אישה לשאול, if a lady comes to ask you a question, should I make a blessing or not? אומרים לה שלא תברך. You tell her not to make a blessing. כי יותר טוב שלא יברכו, it's better not to make a blessing, בפלוגתא, page 360 on the top right, דרבבת, and such a big argument. מה שאין כן בשופר, this is different than שופר, שכבר נהגו אצלם לתקוע לברך. The ladies already have a custom. There's a long-standing Ashkenazi Jewish custom for ladies to make a blessing on the blowing of the shofar. שאין מוחין בידן, that we don't protest their actions. שיש להם על מה שיסמכו, because they have on who to rely, and they have a custom to do such a thing. Their custom carries weight. Jewish women for many years have heard the shofar being blown. A Jewish lady does not have to hear shofar. You know, people run all over town to blow shofar for people, but she doesn't.
She
have
can hear the bracha on the shofar, but she can't make the blessing.
Well, this would be the discussion here, right? That's very good.
It's a different thing.
אבל אם בא לשאול לכתחילה, if she comes to ask, but Rabbi, what should I really do? גם בשופר יאמרו לה שלא תברך. Says the Bach also by the shofar. The Ashkenazim would say don't make a blessing. Meaning, it's not an Ashkenazi thing to make a blessing. Well, Ashkenazim are saying you're allowed to make a blessing, especially if it's something that Jewish women do. But he says, of course, if she would ask me what's the most ideal thing, we would tell her, just like everything else. When you're in doubt as to when to make a blessing, and this is a serious doubt, this is an old fight between the Rambam and Rabbeinu Tam, don't make a blessing, even for Ashkenazim.
It seems like, I mean, who am I to question such great people? It seems kind of indeterminate.
What do you mean?
In other words, with a man, you know, this mitzvah, you say this bracha in this situation, but it's like, if there's a minhag, you can do it, but once you start doing it, then it sets a precedent for other women to do it.
Yes.
And the question is, are there hard and fast customs as to when you're obligated to do it or not? Then because something eventually becomes an obligation, not a, oh, I choose to do it or I not choose to do it. Well, today I'm going to do the bracha on the shofar, or this, or next time I won't. It becomes problematic.
Correct. And this is why I'm going to see the Sephardic poskim have a hard time with his opinion. The Hamalbim B'Atzot HaChaim, the Malbim writes, Katav v'taret b'pshitut. It's not something else. The reason why the Torah says by tzitzit not to make a blessing, but by other mitzvot they can make a blessing, the Sha'ani Sha'ar mitzvot aseh שהזמן גרמה שהאנשים חייבים. This is different. All the other mitzvot that men are obligated in, they're actually obligated to do them. You're obligated to take the 11 o'clock. You're obligated to sit in a sukkah. מה שאין כן בציצית. How are tzitzit different? Are men obligated to wear tzitzit?
Yes.
No.
It's on the
No.
it's on the beggar.
Only if your clothing
Very
requires
good. They're only obligated. שאף האנשים יכולים שלא לבוש ולא להתחייב במצווה. Men can also choose not to obligate themselves in mitzvah of tzitzit. למה יביאו עצמם לידי ברכה של עצמם? Why would a woman both obligate her, that's more than a man is even obligated, and make a blessing, when even a man is not obligated to wear tzitzit? Meaning, he's saying that tzitzit is fundamentally different than the other mitzvot, which Ashkenazim allow people to make a blessing on. Okay.
So the tzitzit, the talit katan, is not required. But if you wear a four-corner garment,
And you're obligated to put
Yes.
tzitzit on it.
But the common practice in,
Is to wear one,
Is to
but it's
wear
not
one.
an obligation. We're obligating ourselves.
yeah.
Okay.
So, back in the day when there were some garments that were four-cornered, so I'm sure there were some available to men, some available to women. Nowadays, we have a standard gufia, and it's usually only worn by men. So would that be considered a man's garment, and therefore?
Okay, so we're going to get to this. The Gemara, though, does
Good
mention,
point,
I don't know if one of you studied it, about one of the Rabbaniot in the Gemara who had her own tzitzit, because she had four-corner garments, and she put tzitzit on them, and there's a discussion about that. והנה בתרגום יונתן בן עוזיאל, and the translation of Rabbi Yonatan ben Uziel, he's like Onkelos for the rest of the prophets. על הפסוק לא יהיה כלי גבר על אישה, when it says a woman should not wear the vessels of a man's garments. כתב לא יהיה גוליין דציצית ותפילין. I'm in the second paragraph of 360 on the right side. והנה לא יהיה גוליין לציצית ותפילין דהינון תיקוני גבר על איתה. A woman should not wear, what does it mean a woman should not wear a man's garments? Specifically says Rabbi Ben Uziel, tzitzit and tefillin.
What are the pants?
Wait, so how do pants become such a problem?
Oh, so again, we have to have a discussion about men and women's clothing in general. It's a separate discussion. But here you find that he's translating a man's vessels, not his swords, not his shield, he's tzitzit and tefillin. And this is not a modern day commentary, this is an old Jewish commentary. The people who say there's no problem for a woman to halachically wear a talit. You're right that you might be able to say that there is halachic room for a woman to wear a talit. Yes, you may be able to make such an argument. But you cannot make the argument that the rabbis made it up that the woman cannot wear a talit. This is an old discussion. Nobody decided to oppress women in 2016. This is the classic understanding of talit and tefillin. ויש להעיר על זה ממה שאמרו בעירובין, we can explain what it says בגמרא in עירובין. שמיכל, בת שאול, the daughter of King Shaul, הייתה מניחת תפילין ולא מיחו בה חכמים. She wore תפילין and the חכמים did not protest. וכן העיר בזה מרן החידה בברכי יוסף, the חידה writes in the ברכי יוסף, וכתוב שתרגום זה, עתיק הפסיקתא רבתי שהביאו התוספות שם, ובאמת שכן הייתה בהדיה בירושלמי בברכות, בעירובין ובמראה פנים שם, שכתב שאפשר שהוא צובר בתוספות, צריך לומר ירושלמי, okay, this is not a conversation. The levush. See where it says v'halevush? Katav. He writes 4 lines down in the wide lines. Shemikevan shelo chiva Torah ela simlat ish. Because the Torah only obligated a man's clothing in tzitziot. He'ach techayev ha'isha atzma b'davar sheyesh bo nidnud avara. How would a woman obligate herself to wear clothing that might actually cause her to violate another prohibition, dahainu simlat gever? She's wearing tzitzit. According to some poskim, wearing tzitzit, sure you can obligate yourself to the mitzvah. But according to other poskim, it's not that you can't obligate yourself to the mitzvah. You might be violating another biblical prohibition. Why would you put yourself in a situation where in order to fulfill one mitzvah, you're breaking another mitzvah? That goes against the rules of halakha.
Can you give the example again?
The example that, what do you mean?
Of fulfilling a mitzvah and breaking another mitzvah.
Yes. If I were to keep kosher by stealing someone else's food. I mean, I don't have food. See, that guy has kosher food, so he's on the airplane. You forgot to order kosher food. You wait till he gets up to go to the bathroom and steal his food.
Stealing blue levels.
You swap.
What kind of thing is that?
It's,
Better for you not to eat than for you to steal someone else's food.
Yeah,
I mean,
some
you
of
want to
those rules
obligate,
better
you
not
want to
to
eat
eat
kosher
anyway.
food, good, so do it. You want to obligate yourself in mitzvah, choose to obligate yourself in mitzvot that don't potentially cause you to violate other biblical prohibitions, like wearing a man's clothing.
Did it happen to you?
To me, no.
You seem like you might be a little.
And sometimes on the
upset about
airplane,
it.
sometimes in the airplane, I hope they steal my food.
Right.
Michal
They're
Shanim,
not giving food
Michal,
anymore. They're not giving food.
depends where you fly to.
If you go to Israel, you don't.
Michal Shanim, Michal is different. Shehaita bat melech ve'eshet melech. She was the daughter of a king and the wife of a king. The daughter of which king? Shaul. And the wife of which king? David. Shaul HaMelech was King David's father-in-law.
yeah.
Understand?
Stereotype.
ועיקר מצוות דשמלת
usually
גבר לא אסרה התורה אלא כשמלבשת אותה כדי שלא יכירו אותה הכל כדי שתזנה. This is very interesting. I want to back up. Rashi in the Torah says a man cannot wear a woman's clothing. The reason Rashi gives, and the reason doesn't change things in halakha, but it's interesting that he's trying to do this now. The reason Rashi writes is because a man only dresses up like a woman in order to do averot. Yes, to mingle in with other women, to get close to them, to be with another man, whatever averot he's trying to do by dressing up as a woman. Therefore, says Rashi, that the some poskim will learn from there, in a situation where it's blatantly obvious that he is a man. Some Ashkenazim uses on pulling. If he has a beard and he dresses up like a lady and pull, okay, no one's gonna think that he's trying to fit in.
It's poor.
We still hold it's not allowed. Sfaradim hold it's not allowed. I'm just mentioning the Ashkenazi side of the coin here. Here he says the same thing. Which kind of woman is not allowed to wear man's clothing? Is the one who's going to be able to mingle into a crowd. Ma she'en ken bevat melech ve'eshet melech, This is not true though for a daughter of a king or the wife of a king. Shehakol mekirin ota. Everyone knows what she looks like. She's a celebrity. Nira li lefichach isha shosa ken vadai. So he's saying, why was Michal, the daughter of Shaul, able to wear man's clothing? Because no matter how much she would dress up like a man, everyone would know that she's the daughter of Shaul. She was a famous person.
She dressed like a.
No. What he's trying to say is this prohibition doesn't apply to her because she couldn't get away with it.
Why could she?
What's the explanation?
Because she's so public.
She's so public that everyone would know who
like
she
a
is.
Celebrity. But
It would be like a man with a beard wearing a wig and a skirt.
Isn't there another potential prohibition in that we're made in the image of Hashem, and that is a distortion of that image of a man and a woman?
That might be a philosophical concept behind it. Here, this is a halachic discussion of so what's the prohibition? According to this commentary, the prohibition is you might mingle in and do avirot. She, by her very definition, can't mingle in, and therefore knew she was able to wear tefillin because this prohibition didn't apply to her.
To fill in.
Yes.
So I'm talking about cross-dressing.
Well, of course, so this is a good conversation. Like I told you, the conversation of a man and a woman's clothing, woman and a man's clothing, is another halachic concept. Tzitzit happens to be slightly intertwined with it, but that's not the main crux of this. I mean, I'm happy to have the conversation. Just this is a different one.
So, with the problem with that logic is that she's also acting as a role model, where, you said she's not allowed to mingle, so,
You were trying to say the opposite. You're trying to say it's dafka because she's the wife of a king and the daughter of a king that she shouldn't do this. Correct. There are two different gemarot, by the way, about Michal. I don't know if he's going to bring it down. One says the rabbis did criticize her for doing this. I mean, this whole chidush is the rabbis saw her do it and didn't say anything. That's why did they say anything? There is another source that says the rabbis did complain to her, and that would already trump this whole theoretical conversation we're having here right now.
There's all kinds of implications.
Sure.
What you would say with
And therefore, a woman
of their
who's
marriage.
doing this, she's not just showing that I'm doing extra mitzvot, which is showing off. It's yuhara that we mentioned last week. She's also showing, I'm the kind of person who could dress like another gender and I won't do an avirot. It's a little bit haughty, says this commentary. ובאליהו זוטה, וכן באליהו רבה, הביא בשם ספר נחלת צבי שהקשה דברי הלבוש וכתב בזכות חושתו. אוקיי, תודה. Okay, let's just look at the last two lines here. The Bach in Yoreh De'ah writes, "She'im ina loveshet b'chavana damot ish." If the lady is wearing her husband's coat not to look like a man, ela hagen mipnei hakol v'achom, she's doing this to protect herself from the elements, from the cold, from the heat. En b'zeh isur lo yekli gever al isha. That doesn't violate the prohibition of wearing a man's clothing because the reason why she's doing it is not a prohibited reason. ואם כן יש לומר כשעושה לצורך המצווה לא גרם מעושה כדי להגן מפני הקור והחום. And he says, and this might actually be used to support Michal, that she was showing my intention of wearing tefillin is not to be a man and to mingle and do avirot. I'm doing it in order to do a mitzvah. So that can't be worse than the woman who wears her husband's coat to protect her from the cold. And therefore he says this whole discussion about Michal is a double-edged sword, and it's better not to use it. This is what he's pointing out of here. Yes.
So nowadays you could have, for example, like Tzahal sending an undercover soldier into a Muslim territory wearing like the traditional woman's garb.
Correct.
And that would be immediate enough like danger and concern.
That could be a place of a mitzvah where doing that would be allowed.
Is it like immediate enough? Because it's like an operation to get like intelligence or something. It's not an immediate like saving lives.
This is a good question. And this is a question asked by soldiers all the time who have to work on Shabbat. I know I'm allowed to violate Shabbat to save lives. That's why a soldier is allowed to violate Shabbat. But what if my job is just to patrol the base in the middle of Tel Aviv? I mean, there's no immediate danger to anybody here. Should I ask to be excused from that kind of job? Meaning, is that not directly life-saving enough? And there are rabbis in the army who are well qualified to answer these questions, and they actually have books out on this whole discussion on Shabbat. Baruch Hashem today, more than 20, 30 years ago, there's a lot of literature for soldiers to learn the halachot of soldiers in the army. And I don't have good answers to these questions because I unfortunately was never in that situation. I can tell you that the undercover operations you mentioned before, there is a chief rabbi of the Mossad. who we don't know who he is even. Chief Rabbi of the Mossad, he has a very high security clearance. And he is the only one who deals with, you can't go to the Chief Rabbi with Mossad questions. These are very, very deep secret operations that are being run, and they have all kinds of questions. And they don't normally, I don't know the average question is a man in a woman's clothing as much as, what if God forbid Israel had to spy someone? And he had a wife and kids in Yerushalayim. And he never comes back. From a mission, he went out and he was kidnapped by an enemy that will never say they kidnapped him. We found, can she get remarried? How do they do a funeral for a person who doesn't have a body? These kind of questions come up all over the place, unfortunately, and we don't even know about them. But there is a chief rabbi in the Mossad who deals with such questions. And on one hand, like Hodul Hashem Kitov, we have such a, like we've reached a place where the Jews, we have our own intelligence agency with a chief rabbi. Do you understand? I don't know that in the times of Tanakh, we had our soldiers going to ask chief rabbis questions. But on the other hand, I'm sad that we still have to use such tricks, and we have to have all kinds of Jewish men and women in all places in the world that they're holding up the Jewish world by their actions, and I'm sad that we still have to live that way.
What happened? The Pope, husband died, and he married somebody, and then he comes back.
It's a very famous question, and many Gemarot. What happens when they have witnesses? They came to court, they had all valid husbands, the husband died. Then one day he shows up in town. I mean, the testimony was clearly shaky testimony. They just were good convincers in the Bedin. What happens then? What happens to the children from the second marriage? What happens to the wife? These are Hashem Yishmor Sanskrit. The rabbis who deal with matters of aguna. I'm not talking about modern day aguna, ladies whose husband will give them get. I'm talking about this kind of aguna where you don't know what happened to the husband. The husband died, the husband disappeared, the husband drowned. The rabbis who deal with this must have very broad shoulders. Rabbi Yonatan Yosef, after the Yom Kippur War, spent months and months and months where he says that he didn't sleep maybe 30 minutes a night, where he would case after case. No other rabbi in Israel wanted to touch these cases. We have a neck bone with a dog tag on it, but maybe the husband's still alive, maybe it's someone else's dog tag, maybe it's Rav Ovadia worked solo on his own to answer all these cases so there would not be any agunot from the Yom Kippur War. 2,000 soldiers died in that war. And when people say, oh, so we lost Hamavadi, we lost a great rabbi. We didn't lose a great rabbi. We lost one of the last rabbis who had the guts, and we can sometimes argue with his guts, but he had the guts to take certain things on his shoulders that nobody else was going to. When the Ethiopian Jews made Aliyah, and the question was, are they Jewish or not? Do we convert them or not? Do we even let them make Aliyah or not? No rabbi wanted to touch this question. Black Jews, we don't know, from Africa, some Christian things they're doing, nobody except for Chama ben Yosef. He decided to uncover and dig and say they're Jewish, and if they want, we would like them to do a conversion, just the Chumar, just to. You never want a person in the Jewish people that some people hold he's not Jewish. And Chama ben Yosef did push such an agenda, and it was really because of Chama ben Yosef that they did make Aliyah under the umbrella of the state of Israel. He approved it as a chief rabbi. When rabbis said the conversions in Tzahal were not good conversions in the Israeli army, no rabbi wanted to touch this. No rabbi wanted his name on problematic conversion. And Rabbi Yosef said, I'm going to take over the Beit Din. I'm going to make sure. You don't have any more rabbis that are that brave. And braveness brings with it other character traits that made Rabbi not loved all the time among the community. But nobody else had those guts. And I don't know that we have today. If big cases would come up, I have no idea who we would send them to. Okay.
So Rav Ovadia did great things, but he only represented the Sephardic part of the Jewish community. So what about the Ashkenazi part? The other?
It's a very good question. And can I finish this paragraph? I'm gonna give you I have a good answer for you. Just don't let me. I just want to finish the paragraph for the sake of finishing. Reshut Rav Pohalim in the Ben Ish Chai's Sheol v'Tshuvot, it says, "Sheisha haloveshet tzitzit," that a woman who wears tzitzit, yesh b'zeh mishum lata de'isura de'lo yekri gever al isha. It has in it a little bit of the prohibition of a woman is not allowed to wear a man's clothing. U'michal bat Shaul shelo michu ba chachamim. And when it says that Michal, the daughter of Shaul, that the rabbis didn't say anything to her, Hainu dafka b'tfilin. That's only because tefillin is different than tzitzit. Aval b'tzitzit mochin biyada. But if she would have worn tzitzit, the rabbis would have said something to her. Tzitzit means to be more intense than wearing talit. Vayin Rabbeinu Hananel degaris sheinicha tefillin balayla. Rabbeinu Hananel, who's one of the Rishonim, the early commentaries, he says that she wore tefillin at night.
Isn't that
Where at a time where she wasn't obligated in tefillin, so she wasn't putting herself At best, it would be like wearing boxes. It wouldn't fall into the category of a mitzvah, because she wouldn't be getting the mitzvah at that point at night. וברשות מנחת יצחק כתב דיישב על פי זה דברי לבוש, וידידי הרב גאון רבי ישראל מאיר יונה העיר שלפי זה אולי אפשר לומר דבלילה דלא הווי זמן ציצית לא חשיב כלי גבר כלל. He's saying that the reason that this makes a difference is because at night, since you can't get the mitzvah of tzitzit, then at night it's also not considered a man's clothing, because a man couldn't wear it at night to fulfill his mitzvah of tzitzit.
Except for Kippur.
But we don't get a mitzvah for tzitzit, then we have to make a blessing before sunset. If we come to shul after sunset, we don't make a blessing on that village.
Interesting, I didn't know.
Yeah, v'gam yesh lomar, it's a good point. V'gam yesh lomar shim haisha atzma hitilat tzitzit, and if you say that a woman herself put the tzitzit on the corners, the shitat Rabbeinu Tam, sheisha psula latil tzitzit, the reason why Rabbeinu Tam lets her is because according to Rabbeinu Tam, if a woman ties her own tzitzit, the tzitzit are not kosher for a man. Remember we had that argument before? Where Maran says the ladies can tie tzitzit, but Ashkenazim say not. It could be that this is entirely an Ashkenazi way of thinking, meaning it's consistent with the opinion earlier where Ashkenazim say that a lady who ties tzitzit, a man can't wear it, and therefore it's not a man's clothing, and therefore Rabbeinu Tam allows a woman to wear it. You understand? So when you dig deeper, you're understanding it's not some Sephardic opinion or some Ashkenazi opinion. It's consistent with previous opinions. That logic, very good. It's a certain approach to the halakha which has ramifications elsewhere. אם כן לא חשיב כלי גבר כלל, ואם גם לפי מה שכתב בבית יוסף, בדעת הרמב"ם, דאיסור לכלי גבר לא שייך מן התורה, במידי דלא מנכר, כגון גילוח שיער בית השחי, ואם כן יש לומר שהייתה לובשת קטן תחת בגדיה, ומשום הכי לא מיכו בחכמים. Says the Beit Yosef that there's an opinion of the Rambam. The Rambam says that anything which other people can't see is not a biblical prohibition of not wearing a man's clothing.
It means in the privacy of your home.
If a man were to, again, if a man were to shave under his arms, which according to Shulchan Aruch is a violation of not being like a woman, the Rambam would say that because nobody else can see this, it's not a biblical violation, it's only a rabbinic violation. And therefore Michal, who was wearing tefillin only in private, she didn't go to shul wearing her tzitzit or tefillin, the rabbis didn't tell her anything because it didn't violate a biblical prohibition, it only violated a rabbinic prohibition. And therefore the rabbis looked the other way because they had the authority to do so. There's a lot more to this discussion that we're going to talk about tomorrow. We're not done. We're only halfway through the footnote, and a lot of what you're thinking or asking will be answered tomorrow. B'ezrat Hashem.
By the guest lecture?
There's a guest lecture just at the beginning. Tomorrow night, just for the first 25 minutes about. A rabbi from Los Angeles, a Persian rabbi, he studied in Baltimore. One of the first six Persian students to come from Iran to the Baltimore Yeshiva. He's a rabbi of a synagogue called Or HaEmet in Los Angeles. And he'll be here just for the beginning of the class tomorrow. B'ezrat Hashem, I encourage you to come on time to hear him. Baruch Hashem. Just to answer Itai's question. Is that what you're raising your hand for?
I have another question.
Another question. Let's just answer your first question. Your first question was?
If Rabbi Yosef is...
Oh, for this Friday. Okay. When the Israeli chief rabbinate was founded, it was founded before there was a state of Israel by Rav Kook. Rav Kook wanted to find an official chief rabbi position. The problem that Rav Kook had was the Badats, or the Haredi establishment, would not go along with him. They hated his guts. So he had to become chief rabbi somewhere else. And he was, out of respect, there was a Sephardic chief rabbi in Israel for hundreds and hundreds of years. Before the Rishon LeZion, the Chacham Bashi, the chief Sephardic rabbi. And he therefore approached Rabbi Yaakov Meir, who was the rabbi of Rabbi Uziel, and said, I would like to open a chief rabbi position, but I would like to do it with you. So we'll have two chief rabbis, not one chief rabbi. Those who are pushing now for an agenda of having only one chief rabbi are ignorant of the history of how the chief rabbinate started. This is not an Ashkenazi Sephardi fight. This is a one time in history where we work together on something. And the Sephardi chief rabbinate willingly adopted Rav Kook into their folds, and it actually gave Rav Kook the stamp of approval that he needed among the old establishment in Israel to be considered chief rabbi. When the founding of the state of Israel happened, questions came up as to how is the chief rabbi chosen, is he voted, is it the Knesset members who choose him, synagogues who choose him. That's a different discussion. The part of the discussion was, what is the point of having two chief rabbis? Why two? Why not just one? You don't have a Sephardic and Ashkenazi mayor, you don't have a Sephardic and Ashkenazi prime minister, so why a chief rabbi? And they decided that the best way to answer this question would be that each one of them would have different job descriptions. There's a lot to do as a chief rabbi of the whole country, and you can't do it all as one person. And so the split has always been as follows. To be an Ashkenazi chief rabbi, you do not have to be a posek. You don't have to be a dayan. You have to be a very talented rabbi that the people want to hear, the people want to see, the people want to look up to. To be the Sephardic chief rabbi, you must be a dayan. The exception to this rule is the current chief Sephardic rabbi. Is the only chief Sephardic rabbi who never sat on a Beit Din. Is qualified to do so, but never did so. And which led to a lot of controversy when he was appointed. Not just he was Rav Ovadiah's son, but also he had never officially done the things, even though he wrote books about it, but he didn't actually do it, which I'm not dealing with tonight. And therefore the position, the split is as follows. The Ashkenazi chief rabbi is in charge of everything diplomatic, everything bureaucratic. He's always with the president, always with the prime minister, always meeting officials from out of the country. He's like the figurehead of the religious community of Israel. He also is in charge of kashrut. Things that have to do with kashrut, things that have to do with, you'll notice on the kosher certificates of Israel, that's the Ashkenazi chief rabbi who's always signed on it. No matter if it's a Sephardic or Ashkenazi, always the Ashkenazi chief rabbi. The Sephardic chief rabbi took over the appointment of being in charge of all the Batei Din. So he deals with all the marriage, with all the divorce, with all the conversions, with all, that's what the Sephardic chief rabbi deals with. And therefore there's a very big split in job descriptions. The Ashkenazi chief rabbi normally, with the exception of this chief rabbi, Rav Lau, who has made it a point to sit in a Beit Din and free up. The problem in Israel is that the Reform movement has officially stopped the appointment of new rabbinic judges in Israel. And their whole complaint is they want women on the board that chooses chief rabbis and judges. And the rabbinate is not interested in giving into the Reform movement, even though they don't really care if there's a woman on that board. They just think that if it's going to be a woman on the board, no, it's going to be a woman rabbi, it's going to be a woman chief rabbi. They're not interested in starting this. And for about 6 years, they've been at a standstill. The Bagat Supreme Court ordered that unless there's a woman, they cannot vote new rabbis. The rabbi said, okay, so we just won't vote new rabbis. The problem is there's a mandatory retirement age of government chief rabbis at 75.
It's coming up.
So every year you have rabbis retiring and no new rabbis filling in their shoes. So what Rav Lau has done is officially, he's sat as much as possible on the Beit Din in order to free up as many conversion, divorce cases as he can, because there is no new blood in the rabbinate system, but that's a new thing. Ashkenazi chief rabbis didn't do that in the past. And so essentially there's a split in what they do, and that makes a beautiful, they can work together because they're not competing with each other. They deal with two very, so when the Sephardic chief rabbi says that a woman is allowed to be married after a war, they're not waiting for the Ashkenazi chief rabbi to agree, because the Ashkenazi chief rabbi already agreed that this hat is handed over to the Sephardic chief rabbi. And that's how that works.
So there's like a lot of trust between the two parties.
And there has to be. And the one time where there wasn't was when Rav Ovadia Yosef and Rabbi Goren were chief rabbis, and you were around and I wasn't. A lot of fighting between those two rabbis. And I'm not sticking my head in their fight, but there was a lot of fighting between those two rabbis, and that was the big time where there was a lack of harmony between two rabbis, and a lot of things didn't get done properly.
Wasn't Rabbi Ovadia older than 75?
Wasn't he?
Older than 75.
Yes, but he was no longer a government chief rabbi.
Wasn't.
They removed him from his post,
Oh.
and every consecutive chief rabbi gave him the respect as senior chief rabbi, but they had to take the government position. So you always had two chief rabbis, Rav Ovadia and all the ones that kept taking over the government post of chief rabbi.
Who appoints the chief rabbi?
Today, it's a mix of Knesset members, and mostly Knesset members, meaning even like the secular and Arab Knesset members, and some of the presidents of big famous synagogues. There's a list. There's actually a formula how they split it up. It's an absurd formula. It doesn't make any sense why these people should choose a chief rabbi. But the reason they do it is because the chief rabbi holds legal status in Israel. He can decide who can get married, decides who can convert, and therefore every citizen of Israel must have representation if they want the chief rabbi to keep the power that he has, and this is why many people struggle with a lack of separation of church and state, and yes, the rest is history.
Yes.